One of the real concerns around this election is election security and what the election process is going to be. You know, we've been standing before you telling you what I think and what we think in terms of interpreting what the changes are and everything else. We're very fortunate this morning to have Mr. Elledge, Lelion Elledge from the Elections Commission to come and share with you from their view all that they're doing to make sure we've got a safe and secure election coming up. I had a chance to meet with Ms. Moody, who is over that, and she walked me through the process. And I was like, this is exactly what we need for the voters to hear and know. So that you know, in the midst of all of the political shenanigans that are going on, the people who are actually charged with running the elections look at it a whole different way. They have a whole different commitment to making sure that what we do is fair and above board and open for everybody. So this morning, we're going to start off. He's going to give us an overview of some of the more pertinent issues with that, and then we'll follow it with your questions. All right, Mr. Elledge.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Lelion Elledge. I'm Assistant Director, Voter Registration, Greenwood County, Voter Registration and Elections. And we carry out all the elections in Greenwood County, whether they're state, federal, or local, municipal. We do the town of Hodges, the town of Troy, all the towns, we do those as well. Every election in the county is done by us. But I want to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I was born in Greenwood, raised in Greenwood. In fact, do you know Doris's greenhouse out on the 96 highway? Doris was my mom. That's where I was raised. Graduated high school here in 1962 on South Main Street. In fact, Rock Wise is running for South Carolina House 13. I graduated with Rock. That's good and bad, but I love Rock. He's a prince. And we do every election in Greenwood County, as I said, and we go above and beyond to try to be as safe as we can and secure as we can. This is going to be a big election this year, even though it's not the presidential election. It's the governor's race. The primary is in June, but we have early voting now. I know you know that, but I wanted to enlighten you on the primaries. The primary is June 9th. Early voting opens on the 26th. That's Tuesday because Monday is a holiday, Memorial Day. And we'll be open from 8:30 to 5 each and every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and all the following week, Monday through Friday. 8:30 till 5 o'clock. They're remodeling our building, and we've moved into a double wide until they finish it, and they're not going to be finished till September. So we're going to have early voting in the library and also the visitor center in 96. 8:30 to 5 o'clock, 9 days before the primary. And I know with all the people running in the primary, there's going to be a runoff. The runoff is June 23rd, which is a Tuesday. And because it's such a short time, we're open for 2 days for early voting, the 17th and 18th. That's a Wednesday, Thursday, and we're closed on Juneteenth, which is the 19th, because it's a holiday. It's a national holiday. It's not a state holiday. So we're closed then. But early voting started several years ago, and we used to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of absentee mail-in ballots. They've gone down substantially because we have early voting. You can just walk in and vote anywhere. In the general election, which will be the big election on November the 3rd, we'll have early voting at our office will be open by then, the library, the visitor center in 96, and the multicultural center in Hodges, to try to make our voters easy to vote. We have about 79,000 people in Greenwood County, and in the 2022 election, in the primary, 10% of the people voted. It didn't happen after that, but we were the lowest county percentage in the state of South Carolina. So everybody's looking to get new voters. In my personal opinion, we got to get voters that are registered to get them out to vote. That's what we have to do. And early voting was put in to make it easy. It's easy to vote. Various locations, many days open. During the general election, we're even open on Saturday. 2 weeks, Monday through Saturday, and we extended it hours. It starts at 8:30 and goes till 6 p.m. And the 2 Saturdays before the election were even open for voting. So there's no excuse not to vote. Now, those that would want to register to vote, we're open all the time. It's so easy to register. For example, if you go get your driver's license, you can check a box there when you get your driver's license, and that will register you to vote. They download every Monday, and I personally do those. This past week, we had about 150. That's also changes of address. They're not all new voters. I think we got 20 new voters last week. Also, in a presidential year, election year, a state election, governor, and also presidential, if you're turning 18 years old on or before the election day, for example, November the 3rd this year, you can go ahead and register to vote. I registered about 25 new voters that were under 18 years old, but they'd be 18 by the election. That's only in the state election years, the even numbered years. So it's these 18-year-olds can vote. They can vote in the primary and the general, even though they're not 18 till the day of the election, but as long as they're 18 before the election. So if you have children or grandchildren that are going to be 18 before November the 3rd, they can register to vote. It's really, we're trying to make it easy and secure to vote. As far as security goes, all of the mortuaries in town email me when someone passes away, and I take them off the rolls. At the end of the month, the coroner sends me a report. It's usually 2 or 3 pages long, unfortunately, and I check to make sure they're off the rolls. We try to get new, and we take off those that can't vote anymore. And it's very, very informational working for voter registration. I've learned things. I've been there 8 years now, and I've learned things that I didn't know before. I've had people tell me they don't want to register to vote, and you know what the excuse is? I have to serve on the jury. Because if you're a voter registration, you go on the jury roll. But if you're over 65 like me, you can say, I don't want to serve on the jury, and you can abstain. So with artificial intelligence coming and the world changing, voting has to change too. We just want to make sure that everyone that can register to vote can register. But those that aren't entitled don't. For example, if you're not a citizen of the United States, you cannot vote. That's the law. And we try to do that. And with AI coming, you've heard of artificial intelligence. It's new, but I don't think it's new. I've had artificial intelligence my whole life. But anyway. But what they're doing is you've heard the SAFE Act. They're trying to pass that in Congress. And it was introduced in our House. South Carolina, on January the 30th. Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the Save America Act. It is not passed. This bill requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote, and requires photo ID to vote in federal elections. South Carolina had the photo ID law in place since 2013. If a voter does not own a photo ID, they can vote using the reasonable impediment exclusion. This means they will need to provide their paper voter registration card and will be allowed to vote on a paper ballot. It's called a provisional ballot. Sign the provisional envelope and indicate the reason they do not have a photo ID. The vote will be counted unless someone can prove the voter is not who they say they are or lied about having a reasonable impediment. Specifically, the bill prohibits states from accepting and processing an application to register to vote in a federal election unless the applicant presents documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. The bill specifies what documents are considered acceptable proof of U.S. citizenship, such as identification that complies with the Real ID Act of 2005 that indicates U.S. citizenship. A real ID will suffice as proof of citizenship. Further, the bill prohibits states from registering an individual to vote in a federal election unless at the time the individual applies to register to vote, the individual provides documentary proof of U.S. citizenship and requires states to establish an alternative process to demonstrate U.S. citizenship. Each state must take affirmative steps on an ongoing basis to ensure that only U.S. citizens are registered to vote. And that bill enunciates that, but it has not passed in the federal or state. The state is supposed to run the elections. Each state has different election laws. And the state should keep the elections and have the rules and regulations for those elections. The State Election Commission, we call it the SEC in Columbia, has various programs in place to identify voters who are not U.S. citizens. Additionally, states must remove non-citizens from their official list of eligible voters. In other words, if this bill were to pass, we'd have to go through and check all the voters to make sure they're citizens. The bill provides for a private right of action for certain violations and establishes criminal penalties for certain offenses. Individuals voting in federal elections must present an eligible photo ID document. An individual who votes by absentee ballot must submit a copy of their identification document with both the request for and the submission of the absentee ballot. We really don't know the specifics of this plan. That would be established by the State Election Commission if and when the bill passes. And that's a big if and a big when. I've heard a lot of pro and con about it, but there's definitely a trend to go to make sure citizens are not voting, non-citizens are not voting. So, and non-citizens are voting, if they are. It'll be a big job if they pass that because like I said, we have 42,000 registered voters in Greenwood County. So that's that. And I know you've heard a lot about it, but if it's a law, we have to follow the law. That's one thing about voter registration and elections. We have to follow the law. And we take people off the rolls. The SEC tells us when to take them off. For example, you move. You have to be taken off the roll. And each state, for example, if you were to move from South Carolina to North Carolina, when you register to vote in North Carolina, they send us a list of the registered voters that register in another state where the state they came from. And I get some from North Carolina, Tennessee, and we take them off the rolls. Moved. Archived moved is what I call. So deceased aren't the only ones we take off the rolls. We take people who move around. It's a lot easier now than it was when I first started eight years ago because of DMV. DMV is taken, and it automatically downloads, and then I check them and make sure they're in the county. Sometimes I get Abbeville County over near that development over there. Some of that development, even though it's a Greenwood address, it's in Abbeville County. So sometimes I get Abbeville County people. So anyway, purged voters. Just because a voter is not listed doesn't mean that they can't vote. If a voter does not participate in elections for 2 general elections, those are the even years, state and federal elections, if you don't vote for 2 straight elections, you get a card in the mail. They're afraid you've moved. You get a card in the mail, it's a confirmation card. And if you get that card and you sign it and you send it back in, they leave you on the rolls. If they don't get it back in 90 days, they give you 90 days when they send those confirmations out. If you haven't returned the card, they do not take you off the rolls, they inactivate you. But when you go to vote, you happen that next election you want to vote, you get to vote because you've confirmed that you live at that place. So our office maintains a list of all the purged voters. If we can locate their VR number on the purged list, we can reinstate the voter and count their ballot. That's if you go vote, and you vote, and then we go in and make sure that the registration number's there, and if it is, we activate you and count the vote. We'll also mail out a new voter registration card. Moving. People in Greenwood County move a lot. And the thing about it is, you can move in the county, and if you don't change your registration card, and you happen to go to your old precinct to vote, and you show your license, and there's a difference between your address and our address, because we have a book of everybody in that precinct, you can vote in that precinct, but you can't vote in the local elections. There's a special ballot. It's only for the state elections because you don't live anymore where you're going to vote. Or you can come down to our office, and we have on Monday, on election day, on that Tuesday, it's called fail-safe. And you can come down and leave the precinct and come down, and we'll change your address, and you can vote in the local and the state elections. But if you choose not to and you want to vote in the precinct and your address is changed, you can only vote statewide. That make sense? Because that's correct.
Could you repeat that?
Ask if you move from precinct 12, House of Representatives 12 to 13, you will be locked out of that particular election as well. Or, like I said, you can come down to the office and we'll change your address and you can vote. If you move from 12 to 13, you vote in 13. But you can't vote in a precinct that's not in the district. You get my drift.
Make sure that microphone is powered on. Hold that button down until it's powered on. No, microphone please.
Bluetooth mode.
Good now? Okay, I had 2 questions. I was concerned about what happened in the last election, about the purging or the people who registered at the DMV, like there were several that about their age where they would turn 18, and a lot of those weren't counted, and it went to the, did it go to the South Carolina Supreme Court? It was about like 20,000.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit filed 2-3 years ago, and those who had correctly registered to vote when they were 17 and a half, because they turned 18 by election date, they had their applications rejected illegally. So asking if you knew about that.
I didn't know about that, and we didn't reject any, because I personally do them.
No, they were not submitted by the DMV to the State Elections Commission.
Oh, I see. I
They were
got you.
withheld by the DMV.
Was my question.
Yeah, the DMV didn't send them to us, they didn't get processed by us, because I personally process every DMV, and also online voters, we call it OVR, online voter registration. It's when you go onto the website and you change your address, you changed your driver's license. You know, you can change your driver's license address online, and it doesn't change your driver's license. And then you can go online, scvotes.gov, and you can change your address if your license has been changed, because it compares the license, and you can change your address, and you can register to vote. It's been my experience with 18-year-olds is that I got one that was 17 years old. He won't be 18 till 2027, and I had to reject it. He wasn't 18 by November the 3rd. So they're starting to send us even 16, 17-year-olds, and we send them a letter saying you're underage. But if they are 18 by November the 3rd, I must have done 20 of them so far. They are registered to vote, and they can vote in the primary.
I was just wondering if it had been corrected, what happened with that, because it was so many young folks that didn't get to, and they didn't count them. But in my other question about the purge, that they're in the SAVE Act, that they want to be able to purge voters every 90 days without contacting them, that was my other question.
That was what I was talking about. If you didn't vote in 2 straight elections,
Is that what federally, is that what the SAVE Act is going to go by?
say again?
Is that what the SAVE Act is going to go by?
It has nothing to do with that SAVE Act. Saves citizens.
The purging of
The issue and what's concerning a lot of folks is this notion of purging the list. As I was talking, and you explained it, you didn't group it, so let's revisit that so everybody understands. Purging the voter rolls is nothing new. That's an established procedure you guys have had for a very long time. He's telling you the number one reason that people get purged is they die. And the way he finds out is he gets notifications directly from the mortuaries and from the coroner's report. And even then, they go back and verify what's going on because they don't want to remove people who are still here. Also,
we get a report that's run through the SEC from DHEC, because that's where you get the death certificates, and they match up there as well.
Okay. One of the other things he's saying is if you have not voted in 2 elections, you're considered inactive. So they inactivate your number. They don't get rid of your number. You only have, once you're registered with South Carolina, you've got 1 voter registration number. So that if you are inactive and then they reactivate you later on, you don't get a new number. You have that same 1 number. That's what helps with the integrity of the system there.
That's right.
So if you wind up with someone who hasn't voted for a long time, finally see the light and say, you know, non-participation has its consequences, I'm going to vote this time. If they show up at the poll and they are inactive because they haven't voted before, the first thing they're going to do is look at your voter registration number. If they can find your number on any of the previous lists that they've run, you're like, you're legit, we'll just reactivate you now.
Yeah, and like I said, if you hadn't voted in 2 straight elections, they send you a confirmation card because they're afraid you might have moved out of the state or moved out to a different county. They send you a confirmation card and give you 90 days to send it back. And if it doesn't come back in 90 days or is the post office returned to sender, then we inactivate you, but you're not purged from the rolls. You're just, instead of, you're a voter and you voted, you're active. If you are, you're not purged from the rolls at all, you're just made inactive until you either vote or come by the office or whatever you want to do. If you vote, it automatically activates you again. But they want to make sure that you live and hadn't moved. That's the whole crux to the situation.
If I may, just to clarify what's in the SAVE Act, there is no specific provision about 90 days, et cetera. They do have language that says that all states must implement a purging mechanism, which South Carolina already does. They also want to mandate that they use the Department of Homeland Security's citizenship database to flag those who might be non-citizens and purge them from the rolls. And we all know how accurate the DHS systems are. So the fear is that they'll flag a bunch of people incorrectly, and then the states who are mandated to tap into it would then be required to purge them. But again, the SAVE Act is still a far way away from being implemented. So we're just going to keep an eye on it and contact your lawmakers accordingly.
So the reason, and I'll come to you, the reason I asked them to specifically address the SAVE Act, that's what's got us all breathing hot and heavy right now. That's what's getting the headlines. That's what's got the rumor mill flowing. And that's what's got everybody going, well, it just won't matter that it's all rigged. That ain't true. So we're trying to tell you that the SAVE Act for this election is a non-issue. Even if they passed it, what happens with laws? You pass the law, then the regulators have to come up with their regulations. It's a time thing. If they pass the law right now, they still wouldn't have time to develop the regulations and get all of that rolled out in time to do an election. So the only reason we're bringing this up to you now, remember, our job is to go out and motivate people to get to the polls. And one of the things that they're going to throw up in your face is this whole notion about the fear around the SAVE Act. That's not an issue. That's not a thing for this coming election. One jewel that he did point out that is very applicable to people here, we move around. It is very easy to move from downtown Greenwood out to the edges. Well, you just crossed from House District 12 into House District 13. You may be all fired up, ready to go support Jamil in House District 12, and you've now, because you've gotten an apartment someplace else or you've got a new house someplace else, you're no longer in the district. That's the important thing. That's the most relevant thing for all of us in here. So if you've moved, make sure your registration is up to date and know who you are now able to vote for. It also becomes pertinent when it comes to school districts and everything else. So what he's telling you is if you have moved and you haven't changed everything, and you go to one place and it doesn't match the address that's on your license, they're going to let you vote in the statewide stuff that you're eligible for, but in the elections that are specific to a region, you're not going to be able to vote there because things don't match up. Avoid all of that. We bring laptops now to every one of the meetings so that you can check your registration. Take advantage of that. If not, go online, take advantage of that. If not, roll down to the trailers by the courthouse, take advantage of that. Now more than ever, we need to plan to vote rather than just assuming it's going to be there and showing up for it.
I don't know whether you know this or not, but South Carolina was the first state in the United States where you could register online. So South Carolina really works to get people on the rolls. We want voters. I mean, you know, it runs the country. And we want people to register to vote. Like I said, we have 43,000 registered voters in Greenwood County, but we have 79,000 population. I know there's children in there, so I don't know how many adults over 18 there are. And yes, Floyd.
Thank you all for everything that you all are doing here. When you say you're trying to make things easier for people to vote, we appreciate that, because that's entirely different from what's coming down on the federal level. They're doing everything they can to keep people from voting. So we just commend you all for the great job that you all are doing to make it easier for people to vote in our area. And the second thing is there any impact on the local election commissioner of the problems going on with the state election commissioner? I know there are several problems going on there. How do you all feel about that? Is it having any impact upon your office?
No, the municipalities run their own elections, and they have their own laws. In fact, some, for example, where Shoals and 96 school districts just had an election set up. They each had 2 people running. They had 2 offices open. Only 2 filed for each, so we didn't have to have an election. You can't do that in the state. If nobody files for example, in 13, if nobody filed, we still have to have election, because you have to have a write-in. And there are different laws, and if it's a municipal election, we follow their rules.
But countywide, it would have to be the state rules.
Say again?
If it's not a municipal, if it's a county election, you have to follow the state rules.
Counties follows the state rules. That's
Okay.
correct.
So the problems down there, do you think it's going to have any impact? I know there have been several problems with the leadership with the state election commission. Do you all think any problems are going to affect our local office from that?
I think they've rectified that. They took the man that had been 30 years up in Greenville County, and he's the new director. So I think you're going to see it run a lot better. It was awful.
Yeah, okay.
But let me tell you something. The State Election Commission is our monitor, but we run our office. And we do things that 3/4 of the counties don't do. And Connie will tell you this, she's anal. We check, double check, triple check, quadruple check everything we do in that office. And it's just a powerful, powerful thing. And nothing makes me happier to see a big long line voting. I mean, it doesn't make them happy because they're in line, but I love it because you know the people are turning out to vote. And I think early voting has really changed the whole concept. It's so easy to vote now. It really is. I had a lady call me that lives here, and she was what they call a UACAVA. Are you familiar with a UACAVA? It's a citizen or military that's overseas. And they can vote. They send us a voter registration card through the federal government, and we email them a ballot, and they vote. This one lady was UACAVA. She was in Brussels, Belgium last year during the presidential election. And she emailed me, and she's in Washington, D.C. now, but she has a home here, and she'll be there for the next year. So I did her an absentee application, and we'll send her a ballot. What we do with that, we take them over the phone, we can take them in person, we can't take them digitally. But we can, and what we do, they call and ask, like, Mom, if you want an absentee ballot, you call us, and we ask you 2 questions. Your birth date, the last 4 of your social, just to make sure it's you calling. Then we send you an application for every election that you are eligible for. You sign, date them, send them back to us, and we send you a envelope ballot 30 days before the election. UACAVA's overseas 45 days before the election. So we want people to vote, and you can't give me an excuse why you can't vote. Because you got 2 weeks before every election to vote. You can walk over there and vote. And the various locations in the county make it close. I don't know if you know this or not, but We have 50 precincts in Greenwood County. 50 precincts. So on election day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right down the street is your precinct, and you can go vote. And since we've early voting, the traffic isn't so bad as it used to be. Used to be, before they had early voting, you either had to vote absentee if you felt were handicapped or over 65, or you had to go to the precinct on election day. But now you don't. You can be, I had a man call me the other day. He said, I'm going to be out of town during the primary. I said, we can vote the week before, 2 weeks before that. He said, really? I said, yeah. And he lives down here on the south end of town. I said, all you have to do is come up to the library and vote. He said, I'll do that. We're trying to make it easy to vote and not so laborious, if you get my drift. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question. Excuse me. What about felony? Are they eligible to vote? How did that work?
Say again?
Felony, if you have a record.
Felons.
Oh, a felon. If you're you're taken off the rolls. The individual system sends the SEC a letter when somebody is convicted. We take them off the rolls, archive convicted. But when you serve your sentence and you're off probation, you can re-register to vote. You have to bring a piece of paper to work to say you did. And we put you back on the rolls. As long as you're not in the cell, you've served your time and you're off probation, you go to your probation officer, he gives you a sheet, you bring it to us and we re-register. And by the way, there was a lady that called me several years ago, and she was in jail, and she asked if she could vote, and I said, have you been tried yet? She said, no, I haven't been tried yet. I said, yes, you can vote. And I sent her an absentee ballot because she was not convicted, albeit she was in jail out here at the women's prison.
So I would just add with the felons, if you're talking to people, they usually know if they're off papers, and so that's an important thing. The laws have changed over time, so there may be people that in the past were not eligible to vote, but they are now, even though they're convicted felons. So that's a good thing to explore. And then just want to make sure people realize on your tables there's a QR code. One will get you to check your voter registration, and then the other is if you want to register to vote.
And by the way, scvotes.gov on this sheet is our website, the SEC's website, and you can change your address, like I said, by going online. Please, if you move, you change your license. Everybody remembers that. But remember to change your voter registration. It's so easy. So easy.
And then my question for you is, with juveniles, if they have a criminal record but the record has been expunged, are they eligible to vote?
They're eligible.
Okay, thank you.
They have to bring proof of expungation, or whatever you call it. Expunged.
You said in 22 we had a 10% turnout. Do you know what it was for the last election?
You talking about the presidential? It was the presidential election in 2024. We had over half the voters' registration voted. The governor's year, which is this year, won't be as good as the presidential. Trust me. It'll probably be the primary will probably be 10 to 15%, and the general election will probably be 30 to 40%. Presidential election years, people turn out better than they do the governor's year, which shouldn't be, by the way. Here's my gist of the whole thing. And let me tell you, school elections hardly draw anybody. Think about this a moment. What means more to you, what they're doing in Washington, Columbia, or Greenwood? What they're doing in Greenwood affects you more than what other people are doing. But we can't get it's hard to get anybody to turn out to vote for the local people. The council, the school elections, that's why School 50, which is Greenwood, is on the general election. 51 and 52, which is Ware Shoals, and 96 have their own election. Albeit that the government of South Carolina is trying to pass a law to have all school elections on the general. I don't know why they'd have a separate date unless they don't want people to turn out. I don't get it, so. Local elections have low turnout. Special elections too. If somebody were to pass away or resign, we have to have a special election, low turnout. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Yes. My wife and I should say my first wife, just received our voter registration cards. Is that a guarantee to vote?
Yes, you're an active voter. You wouldn't have gotten it.
And does everybody get a, get
Everybody,
a card?
let me tell you something. Every voter registration card is mailed. We get a bunch of them back.
Oh, okay.
The post office. Let me tell you what, we just sent out over 6,000 voter registration cards in January. You know why? The school district lines were redrawn. And every time the lines are redrawn and you go into a different school, like Greenwood County has zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ware Shoals and 96 are at large. They represent the whole school district. But the lines here are drawn for the school districts in 50, and they redrew the lines, and if your district changed, we had to send out a voter registration card. Anytime anything changes, we have to send out a new card to those who are changed.
I noticed that on the back of my card.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We highlight what did. It should have been a little highlight there. Any more questions or comments?
Thank you, Lelion.
I just want to tell you I love what I do. I'm 81 years old and still working 10 hours a day. And you know what I believe? You got to exercise your mind like you do your body. Use it or lose it. It's the truth. And plus I'm by myself. I got nothing else to do. And I get paid for it. By the way, we're looking for poll workers. I've got poll books over there and telling you about poll workers. You can work from 7 to 7 one day and make $135. Oh. Plus, you see how the system works. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I love you people. And anything I can ever do, I left some cards over there. If you need anything, you can call me at any time. Thank you.
Folks, the real reason that I asked them to come today. The reason I asked them to send a representative today is election security is huge. It's important. It's the big scare tactic. And after a half hour on the phone with Connie Moody, you get her passion about the elections. You get how fastidious she is about how you run and plan and execute those elections, all of which raises your confidence that despite of what the politicians are saying, what the pundits are saying, the people who are responsible for the elections at the local level are on the job and they're very serious about what they're doing. This past week, I had the opportunity to be a part of one of the planning meetings they have for this election. It was on my calendar. I don't remember how it got there. I showed up. It was amazing to me. You know, I voted ever since I've been 18. I roll through the doors, I go to the little booth, I check my stuff off, and I go home. It has never occurred to me all the planning that has to go on behind the scenes that secures the voting machines, that makes sure we have all of the appropriate signage that complies with the laws, that makes sure you've got the right people in place at the right time with the right procedures for how you move things back and forth. That's all the stuff they're doing behind the scenes. And they make it so seamless that you never even think about it. There's not, if anyone in here, and those meetings are open, if anyone in here actually sat through one of those, you'd be like, wow, all of this has to go on just so we can have the election. We are in great hands. It was important that you guys get to hear that firsthand. And once you know that, now I need you to share that information with the rest of the people in the community. So some of that fear we can dispel. That was the reason for inviting them here today. I'm going to have Audrey talk to you a minute more about poll workers, because that's the next step. We need people to participate in that. And they can be young people. They can be 16 or 17 years old, which you think, well, why would they be involved? For one, they're going to be way better with technology than those of us sitting here holding these phones, right? And all of that's important. And making sure we've got a smooth election. So Audrey, if you would just add what you wanted with that.
Okay. Hello. First of all, I would like for persons that are in attendance that have worked as a poll manager or poll worker to please raise your hand. Okay, do you see those hands? Okay, here's some resource people if you'd like to ask questions. Now, if they work this year, all of these people will have to go through training in May. It's going to be 3-day training. You go one of those 2-hour sessions. And you do have to know the law. Now, I believe Mr. Elledge, he mentioned he had a poll worker book for you to look at if you like. And that's whether you're working or not, you can look at those books to see what the laws are. And they require that you go strictly by the laws. And when they change, sometimes they change from year to year, or the protocol may change a little bit based on the machines. Over the past, say, 6 years, we've changed machines that we use. Now, if you're interested, it's more or less something, a commitment. If you're interested, yes, you do work basically 13 hours, but you get paid something for the 12 hours. If you would go to scvotes.gov, you can find out all of the information that you want to find out about voting and your situation in South Carolina. You can find your voting record, everything. Now, Mr. Elledge may be the one that if you do an online, he said the online updates may come through his office. But you can go down to Connie's office and fill out an application or call and say, I'm interested. Or what I would advise you to do first, go online, scvotes.gov, look up poll worker training or information. You can look at the manuals. You can look at their questions and answers, things you could find out firsthand. Then you can apply. But like I say, it's a simple application, and they give you all the criteria of what you have to meet online. Fill that out. You can actually take the training online if you like, or you can take it in person. Okay, any questions? Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to say, if you are a poll worker, your hours probably going to be anywhere from probably, I want to say estimated time from 6 to 8. We'll go at 6:30 because your polls have to open at 7 o'clock. They close at 7 o'clock, but once you tally all your paperwork and do everything else, it'll be about 8 o'clock, after 8 before you leave. So your expectancy time would be from at least 6:30 to 8 o'clock that afternoon. And like I state there again, I have been working the polls probably since I retired. Um, it can be a lot of work in it, but one thing about it is very interesting. And like you had stated early, you have a lot of people that have moved or relocated, but there are resources that you can call the office at any time if we have any issues, and they'll get it straight. You might not be able to do it there at your precinct at that time, but we can direct you back downtown, and they would take care of anything that you need to have done. So it's good information. The other thing I'd like to state too, the industry, even though they have changed, you know, a lot of us was working 12-hour shifts, rotation shifts. So the early voting is very critical for those people that work the 12-hour shifts. Because if you don't understand this, if you working here in Greenwood and you vote at a precinct in McCormick, 90% of the time you're not finna take your time off to go back and vote. Now I can be sitting right there and working with you. Did you vote today? Or have you voted already? Well, no, I'm gonna vote today, but if I never see you leave the premises of that job, you're not going to vote. So that's what we're saying. This early voting is very critical for us in the industries. I know the industries are shrinking now, but we must really get out and try to make that vote count. The saddest thing I can hear is that, well, my vote don't count anyway. Your vote counted largely if you didn't show up, very largely. So that's all what I can say. But poll workers, there again, just look at your hours from about 6:30 to 8 o'clock in the afternoon just for that day.
Okay, so we've got our marching orders, right? A 10 to 15% turnout is miserable. And that's something that we can affect. Remember, we've been talking since April 1st of last year about getting things corrected, getting our opportunity to go back and fix some things that have gone on. It starts with the people in this room reaching out to the people in your sphere of influence. Again, I'm not asking you to go door to door getting doors slammed in your face. I'm saying talk to the people that you know. Talk to the people that you go to church with. Talk to the people that you play cards with, whatever. Now is the time to get them out. 10%, 15% turnout is miserable, especially for all the stuff that we've got facing our nation and our state right now. The second point he made was the Election Commission has to follow the law. Who makes that law? Those people that we're voting for in House District 12 and House District 13. It's important then that we show up and turn out for those folks so that they can go down to Columbia and make right laws in terms of some of these election changes that we're looking at coming through. He said the SAVE Act for the state is down there at the State House, right? If we want to affect that conversation, if we want to change that outcome, if we want to change any of these outcomes, we've got to quit sending the same people back down there to do the same thing they've always done. Agreed? Excellent. Thank you again for coming. Thank you guys for your attention and your questions. Well, welcome to come back every first Saturday.